The world has ended. Civilization is in ruins. This is the address of one of the survivors, who is sharing her ideas on how to rebuild civilization.
Location is the first step and key to our success. The best area to start to settle in would be the tip of Texas, where the land connects to the Gulf of Mexico due to the extremely fertile soil and easy access to the ocean. The next step is addressing what we should keep from the past. I would like to keep a database of all of humankind's knowledge of all academic and cultural areas. Everyone needs access to this information. The destruction and censorship of this knowledge would be fatal, such as in Fahrenheit 451. The unavailability of information to all people and censorship led to conformity and the suppression of individualism. If we live in a world full of savagery and lawlessness, we will die. It is necessary for moral order to be kept so that we can rebuild. The philosopher Immanuel Kant said that all of our moral duties boil down to a fundamental principle, which he called the categorical imperative: to always respect the intrinsic worth of rational beings. There is an important difference between people and things that must be respected. People have intrinsic worth, and they are not tools that can be used and discarded. In the road, there is a set of basic rules followed by the man and the boy, the greatest being that bad guys eat people and good guys don't. Basic moral principles need to be established so that civilization is capable of rebuilding and staying the good guys. Keeping the current time and calendar would be useful, since this is already universal. For centuries, people have been using calendars to track time. The Mayans used strategic mathematical concepts to create a calendar that's scientifically related to the position of the Earth and lunar phases. Although we used a different version of our calendar in our previous civilization, the ideas of the Mayans have translated into our calendar and will enforce a stable sense of time, which is critical for civilization to have order and organization. I also have a small idea that might help with communication and passing along information. We can find any permanent markers to write on skin to pass along messages, or label any people or patients with pertinent information. In Grey's Anatomy, someone at the scene of the mudslide used a Sharpie to write down vital signs on the skin of people who were injured. This ended up saving multiple people's lives and goes to prove that using Sharpies to label or pass along messages could be critical to our survival. Although much from past civilization is extremely helpful, there are many things we need to get rid of. The first thing is the current financial situation. Wall Street has had a history of severely hurting our economy and the people invested in it, such as in the financial crisis of 2008. During this crisis, the setup of banks and trends within the industry led to less regulation on home loans, destroying the lives of both involved and not involved, people who do not understand the concepts behind the catastrophe. A simpler setup is needed so that everyone understands the financial market, and so that it is not about personal profit, but instead benefits society as a whole. The next problem is the concept of owning living plants and genetically modified foods. The food industry forced farmers to buy seeds each year infused with pesticides instead of recycling the seeds nature already gave us. In middle school, I took a course called Watershed that taught the importance of sustainability and our environment, including a unit on the flaws of the food industry. We watched the documentary Food Inc. and read other similar materials and learned that to sustain our environment, we need to revert back to basics and get rid of GMOs, which are bad for the environment and our own health. We planted our own organic garden to grow food, a concept which needs to be implemented in civilization so that we can both be sustainable and healthy. Tobacco is another issue. Although it is only one drug, it is something completely unnecessary and just hurts society. People who smoke are more likely to die prematurely. Before this disaster struck, we had commercials and billboards plastered all over highways encouraging people to quit. My uncle fell victim to lung cancer years ago and passed away. We cannot have people contracting illnesses that are avoidable. Smoking is counterproductive to one's survival. Lastly, we must get rid of nuclear weapons. When Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed by the U.S. with atomic bombs, Japan was practically in ruins. The bombs nearly killed 130,000 people. Those who did survive were left with radiation poisoning and eventually died or produced children with deformities. If any sort of nuclear bomb or weapon were to hit our community, we would become extinct. Thank you for your time. I hope my ideas will be implemented so that we can rebuild civilization and thrive.